Hello everybody, welcome again for this week's Life or Biz Wisdom. I hope you are doing well. So I wanted to talk to you tonight about what I refer to as spiritual productivity. Now this might be something that you've never heard of. You might be thinking, what does that actually mean? What has spirituality got to do with productivity? And perhaps, vice versa. I actually was speaking with somebody, I'm actually going to move this back a little bit. I was speaking with somebody a couple of days ago who was asking me a bit about it, and I thought, look, I'll do a Facebook Live on it now so that I can give you an understanding of where I'm coming from when I talk about it in terms of my philosophy. Because for me, my productivity has a very big, spiritual underpinning to it. And if you're creative and spiritual, that may be the case for you, although you may not actually frame it as being productivity related as such. But I'll tell you more about what I interpret it to be, and that might make more sense for you. And you might be able to see how it can actually be in line with what it is that you are thinking and doing and feeling yourselves now. So the first thing I want to say is that I absolutely believe that how we interpret this depends on how we define both productivity and spirituality. Now, when I talk about productivity, I definitely talk about things like time management and setting priorities, organisation and that sort of thing. But I'll talk more specifically about what I mean in just a moment. And when I bring it in line with the way that I interpret, for me anyway, spirituality. And in terms of spirituality, it's not a specific doctrine or a belief system that you might have. Hi Elizabeth, lovely to see you. I mean it on a very general level. I have a very liberal, expansive definitions of productivity and spirituality. So if you follow a particular, very defined spiritual path, then that's great. But I tend to think of it as being more broad from the point of view of universal love. Oh, hello Nessa, lovely to see you. And as I said, I'll explore and explain a little bit more what I mean, and then you'll get some better idea. So for me, if I think of productivity being spiritual, I think very much of, I've said this before, you probably are well aware that I absolutely love, I think of my world, my vision of the world, very much in line with the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine energy, or yin being feminine and yang being masculine. And I so relate that to productivity. I so relate that to my view of the world as being spiritual and my path in it being spiritual. So what I mean by that is when I think of spiritual productivity, the first thing that I tend to think of and focus on for myself is the yin energy, which is, as we've said, hi Deepa, lovely to see you, the feminine-based energy. And where my spirituality comes into productivity, or where my productivity is spiritual, is very much going within and being in that yin space. So going within myself, regular meditation or quiet time and prioritizing that. So when we think of productivity, I actually make time in my calendar for meditation. I have been inconsistent at times. I've got to say, it is a practice. Definitely it's a practice. But the more that I do it, the more that I realize how I have to connect with myself before and be productive within, so to speak, before I can even ever do it with outside. So agree, Helen. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah. To me, it means that I get to know myself. And for me, that's actually a really spiritual process, because I get to know what it is that I want to do in terms of being productive in the outer world. But I don't know that until or unless I go within. So I prioritize that time to do that. And the more, as I said, the more that I'm doing it, the better I'm actually able to do that. The more nourished I feel, which is a yin, a feminine based energy concept, even within, just saying that, the nourishment that I feel with this regular internal reflection is just so empowering. So what do I mean specifically with that? What I love to do is certainly meditate using different processes or practices, but also allowing time to reflect on questions that I have and for processing feelings. To me, that's a really big one. I never used to do that much. And I look back now and I know how I was in denial of processing my feelings, and the repercussions of that is that I probably tend to be pretty automatic. Now, because I'm processing them more, I'm getting to know myself more. And I'm getting to know myself in relation to others. Because not just my feelings in isolation, often it's to do with feelings in our relationships. And I'm also able to reflect on what it is I therefore want in myself, in what I'm doing, in my own productivity, but also in the broader world. Where do I want my business to be going? How do I want it to look like? And that's where creative visualization, which to me is a spiritual practice, it may not be for everybody, and I completely respect that. The idea of, for instance, sports psychology, a lot of sports psychologists will use with athletes the whole idea of visualizing them as athletes achieving what it is, the goals that they're wanting to do. They probably or may not think of it in a spiritual way, but I do. The way that I bring it to myself is to, again, prioritize that time for creatively visualizing, not only in terms of goal setting or intention setting, as I prefer to call it. Yes, would love to do a creative visualization with you. Oh, Elizabeth, love to do that. Let's talk more. I know we're meeting on Friday, so let's talk more about that. Yeah, it's just a magical wonderland. And when I do that, I get more in touch with myself. And so using this yin energy aspect of ourselves, it means that we can be more in tune with our own energy and with what it is that, as I said, that we want to be doing, and with who we are at our core. There's this saying that time management is life management, or time mastery is life mastery, and I definitely agree with that. But it's how we manage ourselves in relation to time. And when we know ourselves more by going within, we can manage ourselves in regards to time much better. And what I mean by that then is, what I've been talking about is the being and the yin energy, then of course the next aspect, the other aspect, is the yang, the masculine energy. And so that's the doing part. Because of course, as much as I might really love to just be, because I love that aspect, there's lots of action and lots of doing that we have to do as well. Of course, that's the reality of everyday life. But when we know ourselves by going within, when we have our yin energy centered, I believe, certainly for me, I'm then able to go about my life with the doing part with more purpose, because I'm aware of what's really important to me, because that's something I've reflected on with regards to my meditation and my quiet space. I also do things like journaling, and also, and I've talked about this before, about feeling into my body and my energy centers, my chakras, about how I feel about things, and that's part of that process in the feelings, as I was saying. So doing this sets me up then to do more. And when I say more, I mean more effectively and more on purpose, where I want my life to be going. And a big part of this then is not thinking that I have to do it all in terms of my to-do list, that I need to prioritize, but I need to do that in relation to me. Now, I don't mean to suggest that we don't want to be doing things to serve others, because of course we do. But as you may know, we can't serve others until we serve ourselves. And a huge part of this for me in terms of productivity is setting boundaries. And I see this so much with people who talk to me, women in particular, or I see it in other Facebook groups, and I know, Elizabeth, this is a big part of your work as well, is when we set our boundaries with others, we are respecting ourselves, and it's self-love, which is this feminine energy again. But it means we are then able to do things with others and for others that meet our own needs, and then can actually meet the needs of others. Now this always, isn't always as easier said than done. But if we set our boundaries, then we're actually teaching, inverted commas, others around us to actually align with their own boundaries. And that's a really positive thing. To me, again, that's spiritual, because it is this energy, this essence, the divine essence that's being spread throughout the universe. Even the smallest things that we do in relation to ourselves and with others. And it means then, hopefully, or certainly I think we're better placed to be able to compromise with others, to be able to establish as much as we can a win-win, where we are respecting ourselves but also respecting others. So that means that we can actually manage our diary and our calendar much more effectively. And you might not have made that connection before, but it is something that I truly, truly believe in. When we know what we're about, because we've been reflecting, we behave differently with others, much more respectfully for ourselves and for them. And then we're able to negotiate, as I said, compromise and create win-wins, and work with others, setting with regards to boundaries and also with regards to compassion. And I also believe compassion is spiritual, and that compassion is part of productivity in terms of self-compassion and compassion for others. We need to be able to say no when people are asking us to do so many things, when our to-do list is so long, but we can do it in a compassionate way with them, with others, where we might be saying, I can't do it today, and maybe you can do it another time, or maybe I can't do it, but maybe so-and-so might be able to help. There's lots of ways that you can actually, you can respond to other people that is in a loving, compassionate way without compromising yourself and without disrespecting other people. And it's around having also time, I see, in terms of diaries, and the doing is also doing things that are fun for you. It's not just the doing that's only work related, or the doing that is, family obligations and that sort of thing. It is very much protecting your time, even if it's only a small amount. Even if you can't do as much in that time as you would like, but protecting some amount of time for yourself is actually really important, because it will also create more energy for you. Because when we do things that we really enjoy, again, it sets off this positive momentum in the universe. It's sort of this goodness that gets expelled out. And I think that really, it just means that it has such a positive, effect. And again, encourages others to do that as well. But it also replenishes our energy. And it's actually our energy that we need to manage more than our time. And actually observing for yourself, when is your greatest energy during the day? I've talked about this before. Means that you can do the things that will require greater energy at the times when you do have that greater energy. So it definitely helps in terms of that as well. So there are actually, I believe, so many ways that we can view productivity in a spiritual way, using the spiritual gifts that we have when we are creative and spiritual, and doing it in a loving, compassionate way, setting our boundaries so we don't overload ourselves with work and with obligations to others, and being realistic in terms of how much we can actually get done in a day, And our to-dos are then more going to be aligned with our vision. Talked before about creative visualization. So it ties in more with what vision we have for our business and our lives and our values as well. Because I believe when we go within, we are more likely to live our lives according to our values. And to me, that's a spiritual process. Identifying our values and living by them. So there's a few things for you to be mulling over in regards to this link that I'm making between productivity and spirituality. I'm actually not the only person in the whole wide world who's done this. I have read of others who have as well. As I said, I believe that life mastery is where it's at, and that is a spiritual process. So I will leave it with that. As usual, any questions, any comments that you have, please post them in the comments below. You are welcome to contact me if you would like to explore this more and how I might be able to help you with regards to you becoming more productive in a spiritual way, as you're inclined, if you're in this group, in this Facebook group, to actually want to use a spiritual approach to various aspects of your life. So I wish you all the best with thinking about how this and feeling into it, and I encourage you to reflect on it and take some time to meditate on this and see what the linkages are and how you can be in a more spiritual way in terms of your productivity and obviously doing as well. I will probably talk about this more as we go along as well, because as things come to me and that sort of thing. I will leave it there and wishing you a wonderful week. Namaste. Bye-bye.